And I am Jacqueline Holstead, and I'm with you today from On Point Conversations. I have a company, the name of that company is On Point Thinking. So today I'm going to talk to you about interruptions. We are all going to face interruptions, whether we're working remotely, whether we're in person, whether we're wherever we are, some type of interruption. And sometimes those interruptions are necessary because they're emergencies. In a business, it can be a client who's got a problem, a production line's got a problem, the website is down. So these are interruptions that are needed to run the business, and they're necessary. But in other cases, we get interrupted with follow-ups, with things that could come at a later time, with things we could follow up with later. So in order to help your team and you be more productive and avoid some of those interruptions, I want to talk to you today about, it goes back kind of to time management, but I want to talk to you today about some of the things that I've put in place and that I ask my clients to put in place to help them be more productive during the day and avoid some of the interruptions and deal with some of the interruptions when they need to deal with it. So the first thing that I talk about is we talk about starting with a current time analysis. Now, I know that sounds like a lot of work. It really isn't. All you need to do is keep a notebook, a timeline, whatever you want beside you, and keep track of how you spend your time. And I've done it myself, and I do it over a week. That sounds like a lot too, but things change between Monday and Friday and during the week. So time analysis, now I'm not saying every second, but enough time analysis will tell you, did you in fact spend more time on a project because you did get interrupted, or it also tells you when you work on certain projects, when you're the sharpest, when you feel the sharpest. So jot down that schedule of the time spent. It will really help you later when you're analyzing it. So I'm doing things like, say, 9 o'clock, you answer email or questions or text, 10:20, there's a client meeting every Monday at 10:20. So you can analyze in pretty good detail where you currently spend your time. Now, once you've done that, once I've done that and once a client does that, then we review it together. I review it with the client on their particular timelines. And we talk about ways and types of things that happen during the day and places. So generally, we find that on Monday morning, we're not quite as productive, but because we're getting up to speed on meetings and we're getting up to speed on projects. We've had the weekend off. We kind of thought less about it. Now we're going kind of rehashing what happened last week and what the projects are in the project schedule. In some cases, in order to avoid those interruptions and to hit the ground more running on Monday morning, I've suggested, and clients have put in place, a system where they do the analysis and the review of the projects at the end of the week. And at the end of the week, on a Friday afternoon, they're putting together the action plan for what they start on Monday morning. So it's kind of like you have an action plan that's ready and available for you on Monday. That works for some clients. It might not work for all, but you might try that. I also talk about office hours for my clients. Generally, if you're a team leader, it's a little hard if you're allowing your team to contact you at any time. That's okay, and it seems like really the nice thing to do, but in a way, it can leave you irritated, and that's not good when you show irritation to your team. So it's a good idea to talk about office hours. Maybe you say to your team, I'm going to be unavailable between, and then go back to the time schedule or the time analysis you had. When is the best time for you to do that? And let them know that prior to that or after that, you're available so they can send you things. The other thing with email or text or whatever way you're communicating with your team, let them know when you'll be looking at that so that you're not constantly looking at email or text or any of those types of Trello, any of those types of management tools that are supposed to be helping you. Instead, they're taking your time away from you by having you check constantly. So you can use a particular time of day to check. Now, if there's an emergency, I usually have within my clients and within people I work with a certain code, we might say. It's kind of like a hospital code red. That means it's an emergency. And it's an emergency that has to be handled right away, and it is not something that you can wait for. But people generally use that judiciously because not everything has to be a code red. So set some office hours. Now, that's a little bit hard sometimes with clients who expect you to just be there when they call, but they will also understand if you're setting the expectation. I set the expectation up front, and then there isn't really a situation where they're thinking, why aren't they calling me back right away? Why aren't they getting back to me? Because there's a certain agreement in place. And they're going to realize when you discuss it with them that you're working on their project or you're working on projects. And, they're going to understand that you have other clients. You don't need to tell them that necessarily, but you can't stay in business necessarily if you have just one client. So in your client agreement is usually where I set it up. If you already have a client and you've got some situation here, you might want to just sit down and talk about a time agreement. Set the expectations. Oftentimes, particularly when I talk to government agencies or particularly government agencies, they'll say, I'll get back to you at my earliest convenience. Please don't do that. That is I don't care what your earliest convenience is. I want you to get back to me on my issue. So kind of take a look at that if you're currently saying that. I think it's just something that people have put in place and they don't really see the problem with it. But if you're dealing with clients, that sounds kind of like, I'm only going to get back to you when it's convenient for me. Now, in a team situation, I set up office hours too. Again, if there's an emergency, you take care of it then. But if you have certain hours that you're not available, the team will know to either contact you before or after, and they'll know that they can't expect any kind of response during that period of time. And be firm about it. Emergencies are one thing, but not everything, as I said before, is an emergency. The other thing you can set up is stable meeting times. Now, when you do that, and I found this to be the case too, you might not need a meeting time at that time. You might say, we will meet every Monday morning at 10:30. Well, if you're doing the Friday planning and everybody's up and running, you may just ask your team, do you want to meet today? And they can just get back to you. We're all moving. We all know where to go. We're doing perfectly. And that meeting isn't necessary. So you can cut out those meetings, but do try to set up an expectation of when those meetings might happen. Now, all that said, interruptions is a common thing. And we talk about it all the time. And sometimes it means really spending some time using and grabbing those 10 minutes, those 5 minutes to work on a project. Now, that's sometimes hard if it's a long project and you really need some thinking time. So I don't talk about having these little periods of time where you're 5 minute, 10 minute, but I'm just talking about when you have that time, you can grab the time. Keep a notebook by you, not necessarily your phone. I don't know about you, but I notice with my phone, I can then get distracted by, I see an email. I see a text. With a paper and pencil, or pen, whatever, I don't get interrupted as much. And if I'm using that time efficiently, then I can put down those notes that I need in that little 5 to 10 period. Now, sometimes you have that little time before presentations, and I'm getting a little off track here, but I wanted to present this to you. When I have some time, because I normally get to a client meeting early. It doesn't mean I go into the waiting room early, but it does mean I'm maybe in my car waiting, but I'm early so that I'm never late. And during that time, I go through my accomplishments to get my confidence up, to get things going. And if I'm in the waiting room, I'm going to look around and listen. I want to hear what the other employees are saying. I want to hear what my client should be possibly hearing. I want to hear what the people that are buying from them are saying. If you're in a waiting room. Now, during COVID, waiting rooms have been very sparse. Normally, they're not even open, or now they're open, but you might have things sitting quite a ways away from another person, which is fine. You can still kind of spend your time looking, listening, and learning while you're there. And for presentations and when you do meetings, to be less interrupted, make sure you do a meeting agenda. And really expand on that agenda. What are you going to cover in that agenda? Sometimes I'll ask for an agenda from a client because they've called the meeting, and it's so general I can't tell what I'm supposed to be preparing for, and I don't think the team members can either. So get as specific as you can. And one of the things that I think is helpful too is to just be aware that when you are on a project and you need that uninterrupted time to think about your project, you can go back to your time analysis, or you can set up a time where you can just tell the team just for that particular week or that time period when you're not going to be available. I think just letting people know provides a way for them not to be discouraged if you don't answer immediately. We all have this idea that, or many of us, that we drop a line, we send an email, and it should be answered right away, especially when it comes into a team environment or a company environment. And then there's almost this feeling, and if you're not working in the office, almost a feeling like, well, where are they? Are they not there? Are they not working? Are they? So it's setting those expectations, I think, that are really going to be a good idea. And again, if it's an emergency, make sure that they know it's an emergency and they let you know that it's an emergency. So today, I hope I gave you some ideas on how to handle interruptions, and I think you'll probably all have your own ideas on how you handle interruptions. I, for example, am working on writing more. And when I write on a particular topic, it is a lot better for me to have uninterrupted time so I can think. But that's difficult for me because I have a lot of commitments, a lot of things going on, a lot of people I work with, and therefore those time periods are a little hard to find and they're a little hard to keep. So I too tend to grab times in different time periods, and I keep my notes with me. So if I have a period of time that I can just sit and work on something, or if I have maybe 5 or 10 minutes, I have those notes with me and I can start adding to them. And sometimes actually getting away from it and then coming back enhances my thinking. So I think of more things. I guess my brain's working on it when I'm not actually writing about it or doing something about it. So that's another option. Now, if you get overloaded, let's say you get interrupted, and you need a break, take a break. Seriously, take a break. Just go walk away. You don't want to be irritated with your team. You don't want to make decisions in the spur of the moment where you make something and it's really not a good idea. Don't post during that period of time. Don't say anything bad about your company or your coworkers. Just go chill for a few minutes. Meditate, do a little yoga, do anything to get away from that kind of feeling that you're being pulled in different directions. Because no matter what you do, there is that feeling that you have to be moving, working. And therefore, setting again the expectations of when you're going to be online. You're probably always online, but when you're going to be concentrating on a certain project, when you will answer the email, when you will answer text, when you will be looking at certain other things. Now, maybe I do this sometimes too when I'm in a project. I might say, text me if it's an emergency. Email me if it's not. Slack is another one that a lot of people use. So just put in there, if you put in something like you're just thinking about, put it in there and just say, for next meeting, or something that tables it to a certain time period when you can actually think about it and do something about it. So that's what I have to talk to you today. I'd love to hear from you. If you can contact me, I'm at onpointthinking.com. I have a contact page and I read all of those contacts and respond. Sometimes I use it for my podcast. In fact, this week was the week where I was really working with someone who was feeling very, very, very agitated because they just felt like they were just pulled in so many different directions. And so we had to spend some time setting expectations with them, and then spend some time setting expectations with their team, and then setting some expectations of what's going to be coming up down the pike. Things change. And I do think we all need to be flexible. You can't just put together a schedule and say this is always how it's going to be. However, if you have something in place and you feel good about it and it's working, you might as well keep it in there and keep it working. So as I said, one of the clients, or some of the clients I work with, have the Friday afternoon dump, where basically they take and they go through the project. They put in all the information that they have, what they need, what they're going to jump on Monday morning. And it actually kind of is a stress release because for them, they don't have to think about it all weekend. They've now put it all down. As a team, we all know where we're going and we can move from there. Well, that's all I have for you today. I appreciate you listening. And I'm here every Thursday doing a podcast on different topics. And I look forward to hearing from you. If you want to get on my onpointthinking.com contact page, Jacqueline Holstead. So have a really good day.